Are we live? Okay, sounds like we're on. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was called by John, the Benton NRCS office, about doing this presentation. When he first called me up and told me, he asked me if I would be willing to come down and talk about planter setup or no-till or cover crop planting. He might as well said, Bruce, would you like to come down here and hop in a pot of boiling oil? Because I'm well aware of, I work with a lot of farmers, I'm well aware that everybody's got a little different idea on some of the fundamental setups when it comes to road planters, when it comes to closing wheels, no-till culverts, that type of thing. We could get into a long discussion on that. I've done that before. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to go a little bit different direction. See if I get this thing to work. Okay. This is very simple. It's logical. But if we have accurate, timely information, we understand the principles of operation, we take corresponding action, we increase our odds of success. The basics are the same regardless of your tillage or no tillage system. We've got to cut, place, firm, and close that seed trench. And there I would normally go into all the different kinds of holders, road cleaners. Save you some headache, and we're going to bypass this. If we want to discuss this later, we run short in time, we can always go back into any of this. But it's not my focus today. I'm going to stop at this slide for just a little bit. As you go into a no-till or a cover crop environment, what we see as we look at the mapping that comes back off the planters that have been in this environment is we see a much tougher seed bed to try and close that seed trench, to close the seed trench in. We also see a much rougher ride in general. Once again, in general. But the takeaway from this, you go from the rubber tire down here, and you see the best percentage of ear counts coming from your heavier closing wheel. That's just a short takeaway from that. Once again, not my focus today. This is, let's see if Mark can bring it up here. I brought him along for technical issues and for difficult questions. So if you have any difficult questions, Mark, you're on. But we'll see if we can bring that up. This is actually a gentleman's in this room. We can bring it up and make it work. Full screen, that. Flat insensorial ride that's about 5 to 6 foot high. Some of you down south, of here had an awful wet spring. Couldn't get in to kill your cover crop when you wanted to. You had a very similar situation. This is a night. Yeah, is there a way to turn the lights down in here? We can redo it. Yeah, take her back to the beginning here, Mark. A little bit, when you turn the camera around, you can just see the real planter. Look out to the side of this Kinsey planter, you'll see how tall this cover crop is. Look out to there, it's right up there on the tank. Maybe several of you have done this, I don't know, it was an eye-opener for me. And it gave me a realization of some of the tough environments that some of you guys are trying to plant into. This is that same field. A little while later, I think it is. Robert, I got to pick on you. Raise your hand. Here's the gentleman involved in this. Did a beautiful job. Got a good stand. Right over here, you can see how tall it is right next there. Here's where the tire tractors mashed it down. Take it on to the next one a little bit later. And this one's just a beautiful shot. That's me. Sorry. That's just a beautiful shot. I'm assuming that field still looks pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. Now join the party, come on in. Yeah, I think most of us are in that same situation, but looks like this field really recovered well from the challenges that they faced. We're going to go on. We can get tied up with small things sometimes and miss the big picture. We're going to go on to some big picture things in here in a little bit. Planter monitoring systems. This is the first one. I'm old enough to remember this one on our farm. How many here can remember that planter monitoring system? Yeah, there's a number of hands coming up here. You basically put the seed in, you put the plunger on top, and the seed went down, the plunger went down, it was all 4 rows, it went down, even if one of them had a problem. Expensive mistake to learn, but that's what they had. I call it a 2-eye sensor, the manual. Would not catch this kind of problem for quite some time. These are actually some meters came into our shop 2 years ago. The gentleman was planting with this planter, 16-row planter. Most of those fingers are actually missing or backwards in that meter, that's 12 fingers. He told me, he said, Bruce, he said, I did not realize I had a problem until the corn came up. And that was 2 years ago, corn was $7. Expensive. Then we come along with this. I remember running this one in the tractor. We call it a walking sensor. You use a 2-eye electronic sensor, and it would just simply meet the flash and cease went past it. Also, may or may not catch that depending on how close you're watching. And we went to this one, very common monitor. CompuTrack 250, 350, 450 in the deer lineup. Used a 3-eye sensor, could actually measure population. You get it pretty doggone close with a good sensor. But it was really still a population sensor. It would not catch this problem. You look at this and you say, where's the problem? Well, what you can't see by sitting out there, and I can't really see it because it's blowing up so much, and it's kind of hard to see, but right in there, every one of them, all 16 rows, have been tested by an OEM dealer. I'm picking on OEM dealers, I'm picking on this one particular one, okay? Don't take me wrong here. Have been tested by the dealer on their test stands, and every single meter had 100% written on it. We've been in this business 10 years. We run millions and millions of seeds through test stands. This is statistically impossible. Okay, it didn't happen. So the guy had those meters, thought he had perfect meters, went to the field, he was real happy. Only thing I can imagine here is he must have told his dealer, I don't want them back till they're all 100%. So the dealer said, fine. They're 100%, send them back out the door. About the only thing I can imagine. But based on that monitor right there, your population, you'd have to pick out, is it dead on it or not? Then come on 2020, many years ago with that, Precision came out with that, going on our 8th year with it. Became a whole plant performance monitor. We're monitoring now singulation, we know skips, doubles in every row. We know down pressure, we know ground contact, spacing, just a whole pile of details that we can see that we never saw before. So now we're monitoring more than just the seed dropping out. We're finding out how is that entire plant performing. Big step up. Since this time, other companies have made advancements. Kind of tongue-in-cheek, I'll say they're getting close to where they were 7 years ago. So, but they made big improvements, no question about it. Last year we took it to a new level. Started adding an iPad, gathering it through the 20 so we can see graphically the data coming out the back of that planter. We can catch problems visually or graphically. A lot of times when you're watching the monitor, you might see a little blip in one of the numbers. You might even not be watching it all the time. And you wonder, what was that? By porting that over to an iPad now, we can see every little speck of information, every 1/5 of a second, and all kinds of details that come down to skip levels, down pressure, spacing. And you can pick out a lot of issues you could not pick out before even the 2020 monitor. Issues like this one right here. This is what we call field view screen. It's an Apple iPad. And it is picking up a spacing issue. The shaft is, I don't know exact situation here, but it's probably catching a bolt. It could have been, you remember the old 7,000 year planters where they had the drive dogs underneath that would skip for just a second. You want to see if the crop came up. It may have been that. I don't know exactly what it is, but it was an issue. You see it instantly. That planter has a problem on one side of it. Find the arrows on it. Just in the planting direction. Planter was going that direction, right side of it. So right away, the right half of that planter has mechanical issues causing problems. Pick it up just like that. Pick up things like singulation. On this map shows they run some strips at different singulation levels. This is not uncommon at all with a typical finger pickup meter, or even some of the back meters aren't properly set, or even the older back meters when they are properly set. 95, 96%, 97. Singulation is nothing more than 100% minus skips, minus doubles. Every error drops it. And today, running meters, if we're not in that 99 plus range, we need to be thinking about making some changes, because it's very feasible and very possible. Many of the fields we run this year, we average 99.8. Some of the fields we average 99.9. The right technology is there to do that. We can also, with the field reports, find out we can get a report card on every single meter down through the plant. We can find out if it was one of the meters acting up worse than the other. We can judge our ability to maintain the meters. It's kind of a humbling thing and kind of scary thing, because when you bring your meters to us and we work on them and repair them, send them back to you, at the end of the year you say, hey, meter number 3 was a disaster. I can prove it. Now, this would not be running very good, very consistently. But it really pulls our feet to the fire, if you will, to do a good job. We're going to move on, eventually get to where I want to go here. Here's a study that's done, 22,000 acres, 18 growers. They compiled all the data, pioneers compiled all the data from the 2020 monitors, and they took it to yield. What they found out is singulation's impact on yield, the black line going up. Not what we would expect. If you have a skip, you don't plant seed, you don't have yield. That's not surprising. Ride's impact on yield. I bring this one in here simply because we're dealing with some of these no-till environments and some of these cover crop environments. We can have a challenge with ride quality. There's also correlation, a very direct correlation to the quality of ride. And in the 2020, we're seeing a measurement, a number coming back telling us how rough that ride is on that road unit. This is a customer that in the Monon area was no-tilling. We got to looking at his map. And this is a good ride. Remember, ride can affect yield. And he saw that and instantly said, I know exactly what that is. He had some low spots in this field. He took an inline ripper. He said that is exactly where I run my inline ripper. In those low spots to try and loosen them out. So when he was planning to hit those, we had some more balance. It's just this more than anything, it's an interesting slide to me. Here comes the bigger concern: the impact of ground contact. One of the numbers we're looking at on the 2020 monitor is a number called ground contact. That is simply telling us, for example, the last 10 seconds on our rubber tire depth gauge wheels, where we set our depth adjustment for the seating depth. If we do not feel pressure, at least 10 pounds of pressure up against that rubber tire gauge wheel, we're calling it a loss of ground contact. Okay, so on the last 10 seconds running that planner, if it felt less than 10 pounds for 1 second out of 10, our ground contact number drops to 90%. We like to see that ground contact number as high as possible. If it's 100% all the time, we probably have too much down pressure. We don't mind seeing it float a little bit, but we like to see that number be in that 95, 96 to 100% the vast majority of the time. And that will come into play here a little bit later. Numerous studies have been done. I just picked 3 somewhat at random. You can pick them out all day long if you want to. Showing correlation to evenness of emergence to yield. And we preach all day long, and precision planning is probably more guilty than any of them. The importance of spacing, and it is important. I'm not going to argue that, but far more important is the one that's not as visible, and that is delayed emergence or erratic emergence. I would much rather have an even emerging field, all plants coming to the ground at the same time, than I would even spacing if I have to take a step. Even spacing is much easier to see. We preach pick and fit stands, bang, 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 bang. We love it. You know, to see a field like that, it makes me smile. It's great. But just take a second look at it and see are they all coming up at the same time. And if not, we want to know why. There's another study here. Spacing uniformity and then timing of emergence. Uniformity, yeah, it's important. Emergence, every one of these. The sooner they emerge, the better the yield. Let me back up. The more evenly they emerge, the better the yield. Very, very direct correlation there. And that's very important as we go into some of these slides coming up. But basically, here's what you're going to see. Uneven emergence. Here the planter's coming on the ground a little bit and drop back down. This seed here is only planted 3/4 of an inch under the ground. This one's 1 3/4. This is his target depth. These all should have been down in that range. But he came up late. He's shorter. He's smaller. Your yield's going to suffer. You will have less dollars in your pocketbook at the end of the day. No question about it. We want to avoid this scenario as much as we can. Here's basically what it will look like in the field. This could have been a tire track over the top of it. This isn't my slide here. But you see that delayed emergence will correspond to reduced yield. We want to avoid that. Here's what I got to chuckle out of. This is actually very good spacing. But this, I don't know the exact story behind this. It's been a while since I copied that into my hard drive. But I'm thinking that was a field that had extreme drought and had some seeds planted out of the moisture. And actually they're coming up almost harvest time before they actually start emerging. But there are pictures that stand. We need to understand two terms here that oftentimes get confused or misunderstood. One is margin, and one is ground contact. Margin, I'm trying to make this as simple as I can. I don't want to overcomplicate it. It's a measurement of how much excess weight that row's carrying. In theory, you can take that weight off of it and still get the seed your proper planting depth. In other words, you're still going to have pressure on your gauge wheels. You still get the seed where you want it to be. We like to run margin, a positive margin. We'd rather be risking on the high side than the low side. We'd rather have a little extra, maybe 50 to 100 pounds extra on the row unit than not enough. As soon as you don't have enough margin, as soon as you don't have enough pressure on that row unit, that starts costing you big time. We'll not really have too much. We don't need 400 or 500 pounds like I've seen come in from producers' planters. Showed every row they could take 400 pounds off. It's still been problem. You'll see that in a conventional tillage situation, where the ground's been pulverized. If you stop and think about it, you're in a field all the way through it. That's 3-4 inches of nice fluffy ground. How much pressure does it take to dig it, to cut an 1 3/4 trench of soft soil with a D-disc? It doesn't take any. But there's guys out there still running their planters with dual downforce springs, set the maximum possible position in conventional tillage. Believe me, it happens in the field. Horrendous problems when it comes up, especially if you're planting wet conditions where we get a heartbeat rain shortly after. Just a nightmare. Ground contact, once again, what we discussed earlier, that's the amount of weight that rubber tire is feeling on the ground. If it's not, actually largely it's the amount of weight it's feeling. Ground contact is when it stops feeling weight. When it stops feeling weight, we let you know we're not feeling weight. We don't know how shallow you're planting. We just know you're probably not the exact depth you want to be because that planter's riding up enough that those tires aren't feeling weight. You could theoretically be planting seeds on top of the ground. You could be planting them almost where you want them. You just don't know. There's not a way to measure that lack of pressure. The margin drops to zero. The next thing happens when we begin to lose ground contact. At that point, we really don't know what our planting depth is. What we do know is what we don't know. How's that for confusing? We're going to go into some margin maps. And we've known for years that margin changes in different areas of the fields, how much excess pressure you have, depending on field conditions, depending on a number of variables. One of the largest, which is the weight of the seed in the hopper itself, it's in the box hopper planter. When you put seed in that hopper, you have 200 pounds of seed, you may get 50 pounds of insecticide. In that hopper, you're adding 150 pounds onto the native weight of that row unit. So you have several hundred pounds sitting there. As that planter goes across the field, the seed's dropping, it's getting lighter, it has less and less margin. But here's the margin. You can see the margin changes to the field. This isn't one that I really want to point out much on there. It's just typical. Oh yeah, I did. Tile lines. You see right where you come across some tile lines. And the planner sensed that, and the downforce pins recorded that change in density by some clay mixed in the mixed dirt on top there. This is what we've seen for years. If you look here closely, you'll see some sections here. As the planter moved from this way to that way, the margin got less. His hoppers were getting lower. So as his hoppers get lower, he has less and less pressure on that tire. Then he stops and he refills about right here. He starts planting about right there. Okay, now his hopper's about empty. He stops and refills again. And the pattern is repeated across the field. We've seen this for years as we looked at maps. This is actually one of our fields. I didn't blank out the names on anything, but this is a seed corn field. We filled up here. You see how the margin dropped? We filled up. We didn't completely fill up because at here at this point, any of you that are involved with seed production know you change from sterile to fertile. And so we had to change halfway through the field, so we just did enough to get to there. And the pattern repeats itself. This is 2008. This is before downforce control systems were on the market. Once we put Air Force on, which is Precision's first downforce control system, one we've had it out since probably 2009. Next year I think we put Air Force on there. Totally eliminates that problem. Keeps the ground contact, or keeps the margin exactly where you want it, close to exactly where you want it. Exact is a dangerous word. Close to where you want it the entire time, constantly changing the pressure in the down pressure system to keep it within a range that you're looking for, that you find to be acceptable. Here's another map. It was just kind of an interesting map. This is a ride quality. I don't know I need to have any for this presentation, but right there's a windmill, right there's a windmill. You see that they've stirred up the dirt. It was a couple years after the windmills had already been in there. There's still, the planter's still sensing some of that rougher ground through there. It's kind of interesting. Now we get at the heart of really what I'm wanting to go over here. See what every time we're good. I started pulling out maps of customers that have allowed us to download maps, and maybe came to the shop and had us do it for them, look over the maps. And knowing I was going into a no-till cover crop type environment here, I started pulling out those customers. And what I found kind of alerted me. Not kind of, it did alert me. Flags started going up. As I started looking at them, I changed the scale down here for ground contact. I made anything under 90% rib. I don't want to see anything under 90% ground contact. That's a dangerous place to play. So I had it from 96, I think, 95, 96, 95, 96, 97, somewhere. Pick your number. You may even see that vary as I'm going through here. I want it green. Green is good on this map. 96 to 100% we're showing green. But this is a planter down south of Indianapolis, maybe a half an hour. No-till environment. I start seeing all this red. And I'm not used to seeing that in conventional tilled fields. I'm not used to seeing lost ground contact. It doesn't happen very often. We have the opposite problem. Yes. We have a total opposite problem. We need lift. We don't have a problem getting penetration. So I thought, well, that's interesting. What if I look at some more? I looked at a lot of different maps. I just brought a few of them in here, and I saw a very similar story over and over again. Loss of ground contact. Red. Loss of ground contact. Red. This one was interesting to me. I don't think the gentleman that did this is here. He is. Raise your hand. This is a gentleman that called me up and said, he said he's running a 2020 downforce system, or 2020 monitoring downforce. 2020 monitor, not our downforce system, sorry. He's running a 2020 monitor, so that's why I have the maps. But he called me up and he said, your downforce pins aren't working. At the end of the season, he said all three of them weren't working. You just have three of them on this plan. Little unusual, yellow flag goes up, little unusual, but anything's possible. He brought the planter over the other day. We brought it in the shop, tested the downforce pins. They're dead on. So I get a suspicion because I've seen some of those other maps. When, at least our system, when 2020 senses 0 down pressure multiple times, it can send up a warning that says unstable pin. You wish to disable it. Because it said, we're not feeling anything on here. So we think maybe the pin's not working. The reality was the pin was working fine. He didn't have enough down pressure to put up pressure against his gauge wheels for the pin to sense anything. He was losing ground contact. This is what the field he was losing it in. And what really got interesting to me here is I looked at those two fields. I said, well, my first thought was we got a different planning date, maybe, or do we have a different, what else? There's a few things it could be. Why would it be different? And I'm pretty sure this is the one we looked enough, my brain got fogged up after a while, but I'm pretty sure this is the one that over on this side, you run a vertical till machine. This side was a straight no till, is what I believe it was. So it was easier to penetrate over here. But this is bad news. I don't want my corn planted when that planter's not getting in the ground as depth I want it to be. Here's another field that really scares me a little bit. This one, here's the first picture before I adjusted it. We're looking at under 90% ground contact. Almost that entire field was planted with less than 90% ground contact. And this is the field south of here where they had the range, they started late. They had to roll. Tough situation. I went ahead and scaled it differently over here. I said, okay, what if I just showed red on everything that was 50% or worse ground contact? We still got a lot of red. Thankfully, we've had a fair amount of rain this spring. We may turn out okay. But boss, that's not the kind of way I want to roll the dice if I can help it. I want to talk about what's happening in these situations. All kinds of things are affecting that eroding as we go through the field. In fact, in the last few years, we've even added some more possibilities. Soil level, soil type. Obviously clay versus sand. What's your moisture level? How much residue you have? What's your root structure in that residue? If you have 5 to 6 tall turrets, there's 5 to 6 tall, 5 to 6 foot tall cereal right there. It's going to take probably more to cut through that root structure. What's your row unit base weight? How much weight is there here to even push down? How level is your plant frame? Do you have a no-till quarter, residue manager? What's your down pressure settings? How tight do you have your spring pressure? Your seating depth? We can get ground contact all day long if we plant a 1/4 inch deep in hard ground. It doesn't take much. We're trying to get 2 inches deep. It's a different ballgame. Closing low pressure. What happens when we crank the pressure down that closing low to try and close the slot? Pushes up on erosion, lightens erosion. What happens, I guess may come later too, but what happens when we put a down pressure, a row unit cylinder on there, air cylinder, we call ours a clean sweep, that allows you to either raise it, rope cleaner out of the way, or put up to 60, 70 pounds down pressure on it. A wonderful tool, guys love it, but you're putting 40 pounds down pressure on there, what are you doing? You're raising the plant. So we got to think about all the different forces we're putting on here. Speed makes a difference. Changes in the way we talk about fertilizer filter units or frame on it. We got to keep moving here. Something we're seeing in our shop as guys come through, more and more interest, guys want to mount a starter fertilizer 2x2 system on the unit itself. I can understand where they're coming from. It's a lot less expensive than just frame mount fertilizer filter expensive. Your units. Weight, some planters don't have the clearance when you fold. Just be aware of anything you add to that row unit. If you got your true V opener, cutting a slot 1 3/4 deep. You're coming off here to the side, you're running another quarter off that row unit. You've maybe not doubled, but close to double the pressure is pushing up on that row unit. Now you got to counteract and you got to push it back down. So there's concerns there. Those types of systems. There's several on the market. This one right here, made by Shaft. We've had those out for a couple of years. A few guys trying them. Continuing to follow that, if anybody here has used that. I don't have experience in a cover crop environment. If anybody has tried that in a cover crop environment, I'd be interested in feedback. Because that one's actually spring loaded back here, plus it's on a walking tandem back there. It's not going to yank that row unit up as quick. But all these other ones are going to be pushing up on that row unit, and you need to be aware of it. This is one that caught my attention. This is a conventionally tilled farm. This guy calls me up, and he says, let's go over maps. We come in the shop, we start pulling up maps. We see this one. I got kind of smug. I said, oh, I see right where you fill up a seed, whatever. You fill up a seed, how it changes that margin. He said, that's not margin, we're looking at population. And at that point, I stopped and looked around. And he says, Bruce, I know what that is. I can answer that for you. He said, that's exactly, you can see these different strips, groupings. He said, those are exactly where I filled up the starter fertilizer. We start thinking this thing through. The gentleman had a John Deere 1760 wing-fold planter. They're, for lack of a better term, I call them economy planter. Little wings fold front, not a front fold, but a wing fold, the wings fold around. It's a light weight bar. He was running Deere's heavy-duty down pressure springs, and the lightest setting you could put them on was 125 pounds. He was a conventional till, finely worked soil. He didn't need any down pressure. He needed about 150 pounds of up pressure. Those springs at 125 pounds was pushing enough down pressure on his row unit to lift his planter frame off the ground and cause his frame-mounted mechanical transmission drive tire to start slipping. Every time he filled the fertilizer, the frame came back down, got good contact on the ground, his population was back up. So we solved that one the next year. We put Air Force on it, and now he was actually lifting. He didn't have problems with the frame anymore because he wasn't pushing the frame in. The planter unit was actually pushing more frame, or more weight on the frame. This spring he calls me up again. This is the third year we're dealing with this planter. Second year everything seemed great. He called me up again and he said, Bruce, I'm seeing the same thing. Because I'm watching 2020 going through the field here, and because I'm aware of what we had a couple of years ago, I'm watching, so I'm seeing the same thing happen over again. Long story short, he added clean sweep, which is, and he was in a stale seedbed, this time instead of the totally tilled environment, and he was putting pressure down on his Martin row cleaners. That pressure, raising his row unit, caused the downforce system to push down, raising the frame, back to the same problem. One thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And anyway, that got my attention. I said, okay. When we started looking at these no-till fields, some of these no-till, some are cover crop. This says hack shaft area before, that's the exact same thing in population. Just another way of looking at it in this situation. You can see here, this little section here is planted from here to there. Just think of this as population, from here to here, here to here. A repeatable, confirmable pattern where we're losing population. You see this one? See the same sections going on. As I looked, I saw it over and over and over again. Not every field, not every operator. It was enough that it really, one eyebrow raises and a few minutes later another eyebrow raises and say, whoa, something's going on here. This is not as clear as it is on the computer. You still see some patterns in here. The streaking is because you had the population set different on each side of the planter, so kind of weed out, filter out the populations, if you will. I mean, filter out the streaking. But you can still see the general trend that's going on. And this is what we're talking about here a little bit. This is the law of unintended consequences. This is what's happening. And we need to be aware of this. And this is basically what it's described. Okay, elements coming into play. The main planter bar frame weight, the amount of starter fertilizer in the tanks, type of meter fertilizer pump dry system. At that point, once you're raising this frame up in the air, the more we push down here, pound for pound, thanks. I don't know how else it will be. Every pound I push down here, if I come up this table and I push 5 pounds down, I weigh 5 pounds less. I'm not making straight. So as I say, okay, the magic answer to this to get in ground contact is, when we're losing ground contact, is just apply more spring pressure. That works until your planter bar starts raising. At that point, your parallel arms are no longer level. They're not controlling the stroke anymore. Things start getting all out of whack, and you're opening up all kinds of other problems. So what can we do? I thought about this, how can we correct this situation? There's a number of things. First of all, get informed. You have to know what your planter's doing. You can't just drag it across the field like you've always done in a different environment as soon as your plant is the same. I can just see the scenario happening that a farmer goes out and he puts in a cover crop and he plants into it and he has stand problems. And he says, that didn't work. I'm not doing that again. Well, where was the problem? Was the problem in the cover crop? Or was the problem the fact that his planter wasn't able to penetrate it and get it planted properly? So we want to be careful what we're blaming for what. But don't buy a lightweight economy planter trying to have it do heavy-duty work. That's just reality. Get something with some frame weight on it. Martin makes weights you can add to the road planer. Somehow we have to get weight on that planter unit itself. We need to get more weight on the planter unit. There's some ways we can do that. You can actually add weight to the road planer. Cast iron closing wheels. If you have rubber tired closing wheels and you're cranking the down pressure down to try and get to seal the slot, cast iron closing wheels, what, 40 pounds a piece? Put them on there. Now you're adding more weight to that road. You can back off the pressure there, let more of the road drop. Period. If you're not using the insecticide, you got a rib corner, you're not using the insecticide, throw a sandbag back there. Get some weight back there. Keep your seed boxes full, nobody really wants to do that. Keep starting fertilizer tanks full, nobody really wants to have to do that, but those are options. You add weights to the main frame. Use a less aggressive starter fertilizer placement system. Starter fertilizer that's on the row or on the frame adds the total push on the entire system. We're looking at total weight here we're concerned about. And the less cold we have jammed in the ground, the less total weight we need to drop it in. Drive slower, don't shoot the messenger, that's me. It drives slower, not because maybe the meters work fine at a faster speed, but maybe the planter can't penetrate the ground at 6 miles an hour. Maybe it can't penetrate the ground at 5 miles an hour. If you're losing ground contact, I'd be trying 4 miles an hour. I'm trying to get that thing until I can correct that problem. Slower up. Plant showers, don't want to do that. Here's an important point I want to make. You're not going to put our Air Force system on, or our new Delta Force system on to cure this problem. Say, well, I want to put on automatic down pressure control system. Now, control that will give me automatically correct down pressure. No, it won't. Not if your frame's not heavy enough. It's just going to push more in the road unit, lift your frame more. That's not the solution. Delta Force, that's a new system we have, we'll look at it here in just a little bit, where we're putting a hydraulic cylinder in every single row. An awesome system. Reacting instantly on every row. Just like a whole bunch of little individual planters thinking for themselves out there. It can put up to 600 pounds down, down. And it can go from 200 lift to 600 down in a matter of a partial second. But what's going to happen when your planter frame is already raising to 400 pounds down force, and you're going to put 600 on, you're just going to raise the frame higher. You haven't solved the problem. Likewise, on those pictures, the ones that I had where the fading was going on with the population, we can solve the picture on the map very, very easily and make that map look very good simply by putting hydraulic or now today electric drive on there. And we can make the map look real pretty, our population won't drop. But we haven't cured the fundamental problem. The reason the population is dropping is the frame is raising the planter. Okay? That doesn't solve the problem, it masks the problem. But it won't solve the problem. I got to tease you a little bit. We ran these electric drives this spring on our planter. Absolutely love them. No change, no shafts, no bearings, no sprockets. That was sweet. Going around corners, this is actually a Delta, not Delta, this is a beta test system. You want every row to plant the same as you go around the corner. Your normal planters are doing this right here. As you go around the corner, if you're actually capturing the data and looking at it and have a system that can do it, your outside rows are planting shallower, your inside rows are planting heavier on the planters you're running. And actually ignore this one, that was actually in the software that allows us to reverse it. You never want that. You never want to be planting thicker on the outside than the inside. anymore. You want them all the same, and that's how it's supposed to work right there. I had to tease with that a little bit. You can go around a little, catch well. This is turned off. You can see the population changing just a little quirk. It's changing. I mean, we come back through at a different population, but it keeps it right. It knows up to every road plant's the proper population. Pretty cool stuff. Downforce. We talked a lot about downforce trying to get down ground contact. We got teased a little bit at some maps here. Just come off our farm. This is using field view and split view mode, or split screen mode, where you see two things at one time. We got to look at this field to see the streaking going on. So we come in split view. Our X is in the exact same spot where you move one, the other one moves to automatically. It's a great troubleshooting tool, great analysis tool. And it was right where there's differences in hybrids. You said, well, why in the world would that happen? It happens because if you like most of us, we run one hybrid about out, and the boxes get real low, and the other hybrid still has something in it, so we keep going and we fill it up later. And you're just saying simply each row reacting in exactly the way it had in it. Some of those rows were lighter, some were heavier, so all across the planter, each row was performing differently. Here's basically the same field. I'm trying to think why I should even brought this one up. I think maybe just to show the. No, I don't know why I brought this up. This is showing the actual applied downforce, really just like the other map. Well, this is showing applied downforce, what it is pushing on the ground, what the planter is pushing down, not what the tires are feeling, how much pressure is in that cylinder. Okay, the next one, we have this still on this side, how much pressure is in that cylinder pushing down. On this side, we have the net result. This is what we're after, very smooth, consistent pressure on the rubber tire gauge wheel. Every row had a downforce sensor on it. We're seeing every row just smoothing that thing out, giving the exact margin we're after. So if we want 50 pounds margin, it's going to give us 50-pound margin. It's got to do this to give it. It's going to give it to us. So now we can go out there and find every single row identical down pressure. The prior system, Air Force, which we've had that for a number of years, it actually averages all the road across the whole planet. There's still a huge improvement over the old gas method. You go out there and just put it in the ground and go. I hope you're right. The Air Force would adjust, but not instantaneously adjust over a couple hundred feet. It would take out the lowering of the seed in the hopper, and it would take out variabilities in the soil. It's just not as instantaneous and row by row like this system is. Also here you can see where the planter tractor's turned around. See all the marks there? And then it planted over that. Later on, I planted the end rows first, came around, planted over the top of it, and it reacted in the space of those tire tracks. Like that's just another shot showing the applied downforce lining up the streaking. Maybe showing the amount of pressure it's putting down changes dramatically. But here's that tire track up a little closer. You see it here around the building. Here where the tractor looped, you can see the marks where it came up here, that direction. Actually, it came up here, drove up here, then came down here to these other side. You can pick up all those tracks. Simply on what that planter had to do to respond to get the right ground pressure on that road. This is the far corner of that field. I brought this one up, but it's not on the iPad Live here, so I can't scroll this down and see what the top is. But that corner right up in there, we're putting 450 pounds of downforce on those outside rows. Then in here, that was only at 50 to 100 pounds. And some of these are actually lifting 0 to minus 50. So just those small spaces, we're varying 400 to 500 pounds of downforce to get the net result we're after. You can also see the tractor tracks. They got it on there. This is the field there where we live. You see, we're planted previously. The tractor previously ran out through here. Mark was doing some delta force testing here without planting seed earlier, a week or so earlier. And you can see how we compacted the soil enough through there that we had to come through. The delta force had to apply a lot more down pressure to get through that. And I asked him, I said, well, what's this streaking area here? He said, well, I know what that is, Dad. He said, that's where I drove the tractor. I can't remember why. He drove it out there. For some reason, he was driving it out in my field. For some reason, he's driving down there looking at something. And they picked it right up. Up in here, see these little horseshoes? And he's planting right here. When he stamped this shot, he took this picture off his iPad. You see all the horseshoes. Actually, this part here was planted a different day than this part over here. So scaled the colors differently because it required different amounts of downforce. That explains that. But what I really want to show is these horseshoes all the way across these end rows. Those are tire tracks from the tillage tractor turning around. It was picking up, it was reacting all those tire tracks and changing down pressure that instantly to adjust for it. This one I found interesting. This is in the corner of our field. Mark and I had a discussion this morning what this was. I thought I knew what it was, and I think he may have corrected me. But see this tire tracks. This is applied downforce again. Once again, with the planner said that I have to do this to get margin correct or get the right amount of down pressure on that road to get correct seating depth. I was thinking that was a loader tractor picking up rocks. And Mark thinks it may have been honey wagon. It may have been a honey wagon track. It is a pretty distinct track. You go here and look at it here, you can see it down in through here. That's kind of what I thought was loader tractors. Looks like we went out there and maybe dug a rock up and back in there. But there's the lane for the honey wagon tractor. We were putting maximum downforce there trying to get that seed in the ground very hard. Some of this is some experimenting we were doing, some delta force testing we were doing at bad GPS zone. We had some problems, so take all that, ignore all that. I'm just looking at this down in here. Even by putting maximum downforce on here, trying to take up those tracks, 5.5 mile an hour, we took most of it out. We still lost ground contact in the worst of it. But we came a lot closer than what we would have had if we hadn't. So, conclusion, I saw this somewhere one time. I'm glad I saw it. Take a minute to read it. So we've not succeeded in solving all your problems. The solutions we found will serve to raise a whole new set of problems. But we're confused about, we are confused as ever, but we believe we are confused at a higher level about more important things. That's how I feel half the time. Thank you very much, and any questions, ask him. No. You may have any questions, we'd be glad to take a stab at it. Nobody wants to heckle us?